What's up guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel Masika Reaction. So guys, in today's video I want us to watch this white man as he passes a point and exposes these African leaders on how they are using the national resources and selling it to the whites. So he adds the blacks, it is high time they stand firm and chase away these white leaders so that they can remain independent. So I want us to watch all, and I'll be back with more comments.
Africans telling you that Europeans stole Africa's resources. Now there's a lot to say about that. First and foremost, most of these resources are still in Africa and they're not being stolen by Europeans. They're actually being sold to Europeans by the African state leadership. Your own elites are robbing you. It's not us doing it, not anymore. The real issue, of course, is why aren't Africans using their own resources to do things? Why does Mr. Beast have to go to Kenya to build water wells? Why didn't the Kenyan government do it themselves? I suppose the Kenyan government could have done it themselves. They just chose not to do it. Nigeria is now a country of almost 220 million people, the largest country in Africa. But they only produce about 10% of the electricity that a small country like Hungary. Hungary only has 10 million people, but they produce 10 times as much electricity as Nigeria does. I mean, I know you want to have your Wakanda, right? But do you expect white people to give it to you? No, you're supposed to build it yourself. Having said all this, it is of course obvious that we Europeans in the north need to prepare for a possible, potential African rise in terms of technology and therefore also in terms of military capacity. And that means we in Europe need to already start looking ahead and thinking ahead about how we are going to win the war against Africa, because there will be a future war between Europe and Africa.
There's this European guy saying Africans are still poor because of their leadership, that Europeans do not interfere in African affairs anymore, and we should blame our leaders for still being poor. Take a look at this video.
If you've been on TikTok for a while, you must have heard about a ton of Africans telling you that Europeans stole Africa's resources. Now there's a lot to say about that. First and foremost, most of these resources are still in Africa. And they're not being stolen by Europeans. They're actually being sold to Europeans by the African state leadership. Your own elites are robbing you. It's not us doing it, not anymore.
Now, this guy says our own leaders are robbing us. It's not them. They're not robbing us anymore. You know, first and foremost, it's either he is ignorant or he's just being sarcastic, because we are not blind anymore. And we know very well that Africa was given political independence, not economic independence. Most of the land in Africa still belongs to the Europeans. In South Africa alone, 90% of the land belongs to white people. Only 10% is what is left for black people and the South African government to share. In Kenya, 40% of the land is owned by Europeans. The same colonialists, their great-grandchildren are still in Kenya. They still own land in Kenya. They own tea plantations. They own sugar plantations in Kenya. And they still own 40% of the land. Same thing in Malawi. Same thing in Uganda. Same thing in Ghana. Same thing everywhere. The colonialists pushed the indigenous people of these lands off their land to establish these plantations. And these indigenous people, up to today, years after independence, are living very poor. They are forced to live on unfertile land, not even enough for them to even farm on. So they end up working for these same plantations to earn a living. Look at Nigeria. Nigeria is the largest producer of oil in Africa. But the oil rigs in Nigeria are owned by who? By Shell. Do you know why these companies that are mining in Africa, Anglo-American, Glencore, and all other, do you know why they insist on registering their companies in their own countries? Because every year, when you calculate the GDP of a country, you calculate together with the income and the growth of the companies within that country. Now, for example, Israel is said to be the largest exporter of diamonds, but Israel does not have one single diamond mine. Can you see that? So, why is Israel the largest exporter? The Israeli company that exports diamonds from the Congo is registered in Israel, and it adds to the GDP of Israel. But this company, its resources, where are they? In the Congo. And the Congolese government, the country as a country, does not have the luxury to even count their own minerals into their own GDP. They are not allowed to, because this company owns the diamond mines in Congo, the Israeli company. Do you see the game that these people play on us as Africans? What I'm telling you is absolutely true, and thanks to TikTok that we can say these things without being gagged. What I'm telling you is 101% true. So these companies like Shell, if Shell owns the oil rigs and the oil investments in Nigeria, Nigeria does not count those as part of the GDP of Nigeria. It's England that counts it as part of this GDP through Shell. Because those assets are holdings. That's why they call them holdings. They are held by Shell. And the UK is the one that counts the GDP as if it owns any oil rigs, the UK. Do you see the game that they play? Do you see the game that they play? Anglo-American in South Africa is an American company. De Beers, they're all registered on Wall Street. And the US government registers the earnings of Anglo-American, which has mines in South Africa, as their own. And this adds to the US GDP. But the South African government has no luxury to do that. And yet, the gold that Anglo-American company counts as its assets is found underneath the South African soil. GDP is very important because it is what a country earns. And when you are getting loans from IMF and World Bank, they take into consideration your GDP. If your GDP is too low, they will only give you this much of the loan. Why do America and UK and Germany and France and Israel and all these countries, why do they get so many billions from IMF? Because of the GDP. Who adds the power to that GDP? African minerals, Nigerian oil, Nigerian uranium, South African gold, Congolese cobalt and platinum. All these African minerals add up to the bloated up artificial GDP of the so-called rich countries. And they call us poor. Yes, they do. We live below $1 a day. Do you see the game they play, my dear African brothers and sisters? We need to wake up. We need to open our eyes. Botswana right now has renegotiated. Now they are getting $15 billion every year from their diamonds. And that's just 50%. That's all they could manage to get. I hope the rest of the African continent follows Botswana's lead. Renegotiate those bad contracts. Bring dignity to your people. Empower your people. Create jobs in your own countries. Renegotiate these contracts. Bring the dignity back to Africa. Africa was a great continent. They say they found it dark and deadly, full of disease, but they made it that way. They plundered everything. They destroyed our civilization. They made sure we find nothing. And when they tell the lies that Africa was nothing, we should believe them. Africa had universities. The first universities on earth were in Africa, in Timbuktu. Africa was great. We had roads. We had technology. We had schools. We had civilization right here in Africa. But they destroyed everything. And they shipped everything out of Africa. It's right there in the museums in Europe for you to see. If you think I'm just dreaming. I thought I would share this. Have a good evening.
And some of you will tell me that what we are saying on this app is not going anywhere. You can see that they are hearing everything we are saying. Everything the youths are saying, we are hearing. If I show you the kind of DMs that I have, the kind of things people send in my DM, you'll be shocked that I'm still on this app talking. Let me tell you, my brothers and sisters, our leaders are the ones killing us. You have heard from him. He said, our resources are being sold to the West by our African leaders, which is true. The West is not entirely gone. The West are the ones manipulating our leaders because they are still here. Some of our leaders are like puppets, controlled by the West. Someone like Gaddafi, they saw the kind of development he was doing to his people, and they manipulated his people against him. If you see any African leader that the West doesn't like, that the West is kicking against, know that that African leader is doing something good in the life of his people. Look at the young man in Guinea. How many coups have been plotted against him since he overthrew the president? He has chased France out of his country. Now, people are even mobilizing against him, including the Nigeria's president. So guys, let me tell you all, African youths, this is the time. This is the only tool we have to stop this. This is the time for us to let them know that we know what they are up to. These our leaders are up to. For how long are we continue to fold? We are going to continue to fold our arms and watch our brothers drown in the Mediterranean Sea in search of greener pastures with our colonizers. For how long are we going to watch our sisters being brutalized in Saudi Arabia by the people they are working with them as mates? For how long are our graduates in Africa going to continue sleeping under the bridges with certificates in their hands with no jobs? For how long are the African youths ready to die because they don't have good healthcare system? African youths, you might have 100 followers, you might have 200. Speak life into this nation. It's time for you to stand up. We cannot continue to suffer like this. We deserve better. Our motherland has blessed us. Our nation has blessed us with everything. Without Africa, the West is nothing. Everything about the West comes from Africa. They cannot even talk about history. They cannot even talk about their own history without mentioning Africa. It's impossible. So guys, this is the time. I won't overemphasize. I won't over-labor this point, but this is the time. I will continue talking. For those of you who always come for me and say, oh, leave our president. I will not leave any president. If you are doing anyhow or you collect anyhow, if you lie, you come to my DM or you send your people to my DM to threaten me. That is the least they can do. They will not shut this mouth up. The hunger for change in Africa is in me, and you cannot even kill it. If you are an African youth and you are not tired of this suffering, then something is wrong with you. Something is really wrong with you. Listen to how this man is saying it. Was it difficult for the Kenyan government to provide its people with borehole waters? Why does it have to be Mr. Beast coming all the way to come and do it? Is it difficult for the Kenyan government to do it? No. But why do they choose to treat their own people like this? I'm sorry that Kenya collected a stray bullet here. Even Nigeria is used as an example. Nigeria cannot boast of electricity. A giant of Africa cannot boast of electricity. The person that did us this in Africa needs to pay so that we should be free. I've said my own. If you like, you sit quiet.
And their corporations control the resources. Africa doesn't own their own wealth. It's their wealth, but they don't own it. Western companies own the mines in Africa. They extract the minerals. They set the prices. They ensure that the wealth will never benefit the people whose wealth it truly is. I mean, look at Congo today. Congo produces 70% of the world's cobalt. That's the mineral that powers your smartphone, your laptop, your electric car. Without Congolese minerals, there's no Tesla, there's no Apple, there's no Samsung. Yet the people of Congo remain among the poorest people in the world. Why? Because their wealth is not theirs. It's stolen by Western corporations, by Western companies. The system is kept in place through war. The West doesn't want a stable and independent Congo. That's why they fund proxy wars, why they support rebel groups like M23. They use other African governments like Rwanda and Uganda to do their bidding, to keep Congo weak so that the wealth remains available for plunder. Wallahi, this is a grotesque injustice. It's a grotesque injustice that disgraces the whole world. Congo is a bleeding, open, gaping wound on this earth. Understand this, Africa will never be free until Congo is free. No matter how well any individual African country does, the continent as a whole will remain wounded mortally.
Now, some people are asking, what exactly is China doing in Africa? What's your take on that?
Western countries have come to Africa for centuries to rob Africa of its resources. They should be admitting what they've done. Some are rich because of the resources they took from Africa. They never thought of helping Africa to develop. They subjugated Africa. They took the political power, economic power, and then made us, therefore, socially, to have no power at all. We had to fight to liberate ourselves. They were never here to help. They were here to rob. After decolonization, they continued to do so. They could no longer use political power. They influenced it indirectly, but they held on to the economic levers of these countries. They were dominating, they were benefiting, they were doing nothing to help us. They created banks that were instruments of subjugating us. They would say, for an example, to the IMF, when the IMF will say, my country is in trouble, can you help? It will put conditions that will put you in a worse situation than before. So it was not helping. What China is doing, China is coming and saying, here we are. We know where you come from. We are here to work with you. For the first time, when China came here, highways began to emerge in the continent of Africa that were never there when they were here all the time. China is working with us. FOCAC is one example that China as a country is ready to sit down and discuss how do we help, how do we relate to one another. And perhaps many other FOCAC summits that took place before, people were not very clear. This FOCAC that has taken place here in South Africa has made matters to be more clearer than any other time. The kind of pledges that China has made and the kind of relations that it has with different countries. China is not here to rob or to colonize. It's here to help Africa develop. President Xi Jinping said it himself. We need to develop together. We are together making progress. These are the issues. For an example, the issue of infrastructure, energy, many others. Nobody took care of these matters. Even if you said to them, we need a road, they never came. If you talk to China, China says, let us come. Let us make the roads. Now, it is even voting money so that we can quicken the decision that has been taken by the AU to create the infrastructure continental. China says that we have taken that decision. Here are the resources for that. Energy, we are together. They are just feeling they are being replaced because they were here doing nothing for the people here, doing something for themselves. China is coming to help. As it helped us in the struggle to liberate ourselves from them, it is now helping us to develop so that we can be economically independent, stand on our own, take our own decisions. We know that argument is a flaw.
So guys, hope we have watched that full video. So it is so disgusting and it's so sad that we thought we had chased away the white man so that he can go back to his own country but we did just a percentage, a little percent. But the percentage that remained behind, it is the one that it is causing this problem. For instance, when it comes to investment, during the colonial system, the colony took over. We had various countries in Africa with their colonies. A country like Nigeria was colonized. And by now, the gold mining stations are being controlled by the whites. The GDP products are no longer benefiting the normal citizen, but they are benefiting the whites. Because you find if there is no even a single cent that is given to a normal citizen who voted for the government. Why say that? It is because due to the personal and it is due to the personal interest of these puppet leaders. A good example when it comes to Jamaica, the Chinese are being given the first priorities that they invest there and they are tax free. So the normal citizen he's the one who is suffering more than the foreigner. So the white came up clearly and said that you cannot you can make your own Wakanda, not to wait for these whites to make for you so that you can be proud of. You can make your own. And another thing is that for now, there is a lot of messages and people are so educated in such a way that there's TikTok, there's X, there's this, there's YouTube. So people are being educated in different ways so that they can wake up and get back whatever it was there. Remember, this white when you are doing something good or when you are going against whatever they want, they come to you while they want to assassinate you. Remember the likes of Gaddafi. Gaddafi was doing very well. He didn't want to be intimidated by those whites, but whatever came up, they assassinated him. A good example or a living example, it is the one that it is happening in the Burkina Faso, sorry. Burkina Faso president is being hunted for what the whites are claiming that he doesn't want to do what they want him to do, because he told them the resources belong to the citizen of Burkina Faso. This Burkina Faso president is a good living leader who is straightforward. It's not like these other leaders who are puppets. And another thing is that in these countries, a lot of shares are being taken by these whites. And when we say we got independent, we didn't just got freedom. We got independent, a government independent. We didn't got freedom because these whites have got a lot of shares in these various countries because they employ their very own people. They give them tenders, and to an extent that they do not value the given country's citizen. For instance, the Chinese, you see, in the Chinese when they took over in the Jamaican, they employed their own. They brought their racism. Another example, it is in the South Africa. 80% of the people, despite South Africa being in Africa, 80% in South Africa, they are the whites. To an extent that in Africa, South Africa has got the highest ratio compared to these other countries. Given that Nigeria is producing gold, but you see, it's being the largest country in Africa, still they have got poor because they are still under the West colony or the West regime. So this was a wake up that we should have to protect our very own products, because it is not of help. It is not of help. It is helping others. So another one, at some point someone said that we should do whatever Botswana did, because Botswana decided that they recontracted these people until now they have their very own shares. They are getting 50% of whatever is being mined in their country. So this is a wake-up call to all blacks, all African leaders and Jamaican leaders, that they should have to wake up and do whatever their people voted them to do, because for the better, the good governance is for the better tomorrow, and for the better GDP. So guys, thank you for watching. That was all for now. Till next video, God bless, one love.